Hey guys, what's up? It is week 352 or 353, who knows? It's getting to that point where I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm old and I'm senile and I like McChickens and get off my lawn. The first one up is from Arrow Video, and this is from 1971, directed by Peter Yates, who did Bullitt, which is a great movie with Steve McQueen. And this is Murphy's War, starring Peter O'Toole. That's the biggest name in the film. And I believe that it also stars his wife at the time. I guess in the stories they said they hired her to keep kind of Peter O'Toole in line because he was a Hellraiser. Now this is based off a book, and the book kind of changed some. I mean, the movie changed some things from the book. This is a World War II story taking place. In the film takes place in Venezuela, and there's some towards the end of the Nazi occupation, the Nazi war, at least in 45. And Peter O'Toole is from a shipwrecked, basically a sub was torpedoed, or I can't remember if he's on a sub or he's on a. Typically, I think he's just on a battleship of sorts, and his ship is torpedoed. And him and basically his entire crew is thrown into the water. He is the only survivor at the time. He washes up on shore to this island with a lot of kind of, Venezuelans, but there is a Frenchman there, and of course kind of an English doctor, and he becomes obsessed with stopping this submarine. He realizes that the river there is wide enough that this sub got in there that way, so his main goal is to heal as much as he can and then completely destroy the submarine. So we kind of cut back between the Germans, who are pretty ruthless, honestly. The way they shoot at the Americans in the water is just horrible. The British in the water is terrible. I think Murphy is Irish in this film, by the way. So they're just horrible, kind of the way they're dealt with. And they show them as villains. But as the film progresses, it's right on the cusp at the end of the war. He kind of works this ship back together, and it's basically one man's revenge, one man's demons, one man's fueled. To stop the submarine, no matter at what cost, even if it's not right to do anymore. And who's to say it is right or wrong at this point, right? War is hell. Even when it's over, it sometimes it never stops. The thing about this is it kind of really follows Peter O'Toole, who's excellent in this film. I know him from Caligula, which is not a role he probably wants to be known from. Swim, little fishies, swim. Very disturbing stuff. But he's really excellent in this one. And he has this kind of... He was... the special features kind of say that he was playing a character that he didn't want to play like as a good person. He didn't want to show any real compassion. He wanted to play what was on the page and as mean and horrible as he could. And he does. He's not really like this excellent person. But he's a complex gray character, which is the 70s is very known for. There is a scene, a dialogue exchange, when they were using a freighter to try to stop the submarine, even after the war has ended, where the Frenchman gives him a line that kind of sums up everything. It's a beautiful line. It gives this Frenchman redemption. It shows who Peter O'Toole is, and he's at a crossroads at that point, and he decides to do something else. A revenge story is best told, if you're gonna dig a grave, dig two, if you're going out for revenge, because you're gonna bury yourself too. It's a perfect revenge story. The book is different, of course. It took place at a different geographical location, one that was more realistic to World War II. Not that there wasn't any battles in Venezuela, but still, or around that. It didn't typically happen like this, from my understanding. But overall, the film is really well done. It's a good film. It's suspenseful, but really the thing that keeps you drawn in is Peter O'Toole. I try to think of the Frenchman's line that says, "You are a small man like me. They'll never build a monument for you. But the difference is that I know it, and you don't." And I was just like, that's such a poignant line. Have you ever watched a movie that's pretty solid the entire way through, and they throw something like that at you, that kind of just, it's the message you're waiting for. It's that poignant moment of film or cinema that you're waiting for that really just resonates. The French actor was in a slew of French films as well, and I imagine the lead, nurse, she's in a bunch of stuff as well. But really, Peter O'Toole is the drawing point, I guess, and we're talking like star power or anything of that caliber. As far as the special features are concerned, we have Running Out of Water, a new visual essay by film critic David Carnes, A Great Adventure, an archive interview with assistant director John Glenn. He's pretty old too, and that's interesting stuff because he's got to be, I don't know, very, very old at the time, but he talks about how kind of crazy it was filming here. People falling off the boats and the sound recorders going in the water and somebody diving in for them. All really good, interesting stuff. And then we have Dougie, Chick and Me, an archive interview with focus puller Robin Vijon. One Man Army, an archive interview with film critic Sheldon Hall. Theatrical trailer. Regardless, this is probably a movie that didn't do as well as it should have. I mean, because Bullitt was such a hit. for good reason. Director also did Friends of Eddie Coyle. So, like, watching this one, it's just kind of like a movie that I feel is in the vein of Day of the Locust from Arrow. And they're picking these movies up that are really good 70s films that probably didn't get the critical or the financial response that they initially deserved at the time of their release. But like I say, an average film from the 70s or 80s is pretty much a great film nowadays in comparison. Not that there aren't great films made today, but it just feels like, I guess, they've aged better. Although you can't compare it to today because there's no time for aging. But anyways, Murphy's War, good stuff. Not to be confused with Murphy's Law, which is a Bronson pick. So anyways, great stuff. Okay, the next one here is from Film Masters. And this is a really interesting release. Love seeing this. Directed by Jack Arnold. Actually, Jack Arnold's last movie. And if you're like me, we all know Jack Arnold from Incredible Shrinking Man, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, Tarantula. All those sci-fi kind of 50s great horror films that I just adore. So when I saw The Swiss Conspiracy, directed by Jack Arnold, 1976, I was like, that's late, and it's his last film. So it's interesting to always see, kind of a genre director or somebody that was considered a genre director go out and direct something else. And The Swiss Conspiracy is pretty fun. I enjoyed this quite a bit. So the actors in here, David Janssen, who's an actor that I'm not as familiar with as I should be, honestly. The two leads I'm not as familiar with. We also have Santet Berger, who's a name I've seen a million times. But when we start getting in deeper into the cast, we're like striking genre heaven here. On the back here, we have John Ireland. Great. For horror fans, you'll know him from The Incubus or Satan's Cheerleaders, or he's in a Bronson picture too, isn't he? What is the one? I can't think of what one it's called. It's not Kaijite or something, maybe along those lines. Elke Sommer, who I always recognize from Euro films. John Saxon, one of my all-time favorites, is in here. Good role too. And then we also have Ray Milland. How can you go wrong with Ray Milland, who, like I said, was in so many crazy movies that were silly later on in his career, The Uncanny, The Sea Serpent. We have Arthur Brass. On the back, also not listed here is, of course, I can't think, Anton Drifton, who is in The Man Who Could Cheat Death, excellent actor as well, and David Hess. I kid you not, David Hess is in this movie. And if you've ever listened to like podcast with Junior, the guy who plays Junior, he talks about kind of David Hess and him being in, I think, the Alps, the Swiss Alps, making a movie. And I imagine this is the one. He tells this long story about, David Hess and this girl were trying to hook up on the ski slope, whatever. And I imagine it was when they were making the Swiss Conspiracy. Pretty interesting stuff. Saxton and Hess do share a scene. Hess plays a goon. He's perfect. Cast very well. So essentially what we have here is David Janssen used to be kind of an agent for, I think, FBI, CIA kind of deal, maybe federal kind of. It was definitely a banking kind of American agent, and he kind of had a fallout. So he's kind of a guy that people hire from different countries, and basically what happens is a Swiss bank account is hacked. And everybody takes all the, they hold the hostage, the bank hostage. They need to pay like 10 million francs or 6 million francs, something along those lines. And they also send it to 5 clients that each one of them needs to pay 1 million francs or they're going to leak their information. John Saxton is one of them. And so is Santet Berger. Who else? John Ireland. There's a couple other ones as well. In the very beginning, one is killed brutally. And because of this information, it puts all their lives at jeopardy because all 5 of these people are doing some shady stuff. So it's up to David Janssen to find out who's doing it, who's blackmailing everyone. Is it somebody that runs the bank and Ray Milland, his helper, Anton Drifton? All these people that are involved. Elke Sommer is involved with Anton Drifton. So it all starts to point to certain aspects and certain people and everything like that. But it's not necessarily the case. Of course, you have to have a twist here. And John Saxton is kind of a thug, criminal from New York or whatever. And he's great in here. He's Bobby something. And he is also ripped off somebody. So there's a bunch of goons after him, but these goons also know who David Janssen is, and they're just not going to leave after they take care of John Saxton. They're going to have eyes on 2 people. So that's a whole aspect as well. The action's pretty solid, but overall it's just the cast that drives this one forward. I think the filmmaking is good, the score is good, the opening is really cool, and the ending, how they kind of do it in postcards, it's very, very neat, very different. But the cast really steals the show. I mean, I am a Saxton a fan. I love John Saxton. I love David Hess. 2 favorites of mine. But I will not, scuff at somebody like Ray Milland or Anton Drifton or any of these people that pop up in here. I was just very happy that they were here. Very impressed with the cast. Very impressed with how fun this was and how well put together it was. Overall, it's a good, solid movie. The Swiss Conspiracy, good stuff. As far as the special features are concerned, we have audio commentary by film historian Robert Kelly and author-podcaster Daniel Budnick, and they do this podcast, Last Great Films or something, by like the director's last film, so that's kind of what they're focusing on. Three-dimensional filmmaker, video essay by Will Dotson and Ryan Verlin of Someone's Favorite Productions. Jaco, The Lost Years, a new featurette by Bolly Who Motion Pictures. Liner notes in full color booklet written by editor-in-chief Lee Pfeiffer of Cinema Retro Magazine. Original 76 retro trailer scanned in 4K. So yeah, we have this done in 4K here from the original 35 millimeter archival, elements. It looks great. It sounds great. And the special features are good too to talk about, of course, Jack Arnold's career and who he was and what he wanted to do and where he ended up. All interesting stuff. This was a good one, and I'm glad that I finally saw this. I didn't really ever think about it, And when I was looking at the cast, I was like, oh shit, John Saxon. I saw David Hess. I was like, yeah, David Hess. I was like, I'm so happy because David Hess didn't do as many movies as I would have liked him to do, but when he does pop up, it's always a treat. Swiss Conspiracy, great stuff. Check it out. Okay, next up we have one called Peacock, and this is a newer film, probably made last year, but not released until this year. This is a South African horror film, kind of ghost, kind of mystery kind of film. So we have here is there's this woman in training that works for this thing called the Foundation, and I'm not too familiar with that many South African politics. I do know a little bit, basically what Americans would know. And essentially, it's a very strict kind of nurse foundation. You get the kind of thing that she's not really well liked, and she kind of does some things she shouldn't do. We see glimpses of these in flashbacks, some lesbianism in there as well. So she's sent to take care of this founding father, like kind of member of that society. He's very old. He's very strange. He has a lot of dark secrets. He's on medication. They kind of keep him isolated, and he's very reclusive, but very bizarre. So she goes there, and almost immediately he's acting strange. She starts to dig around, and she sees these kind of pieces from his past that kind of remind her of someone in her life that used to be at the nurses thing. So she starts to ask and dig, and underneath the surface she hears lots of crazy weird stories, and obviously some really horrible stuff has happened, some abuse, some murder, some cover-ups, all these kind of things like that you would expect. Overall, it's fairly interesting enough and different. I will say that the Blu-ray seemed to have, I don't know if it was filmed in a weird way or it was rendered in a weird way or the Blu-ray was done like that, but it seems like it's dropping frame rates. It's very, very jittery, if that makes any sense. I don't know what the cause of it is. It's the Blu-ray or the actual film itself. Sometimes it happens. I remember Brian Poland's Blood Pigs had some bitrate issues. Maybe this is the same line. Overall, it's shot well besides that, unfortunately. So, I mean, that is a little distracting. I think the acting is overall decent. I think that there is a weird hint of, some kind of LGBT stuff going on in here, and I don't mean it in weird like it's wrong, but I'm just saying it's kind of strange how they handle it with her and some other character in the film, how he has these feelings and all this kind of stuff and how it unfolds and everything like that along those lines. Kind of a repeat of history within this kind of story as well. Overall, Peacock is interesting enough to look at and maybe watch, kind of look at from another country, see in a different perspective. Overall, I was okay with it. I don't love it, but I don't think it's horrible. I would rewatch possibly under the right circumstances, but I usually save my rewatches for older films, as I am a big aficionado of older cinema in general. But overall, this was interesting enough, and I will never turn away the chance to watch a foreign film that I haven't seen too many films from the country. I've seen kind of some older horror films from South Africa, like I think Curse 3 with Christopher Lee is South African, or something along the lines of maybe Headhunter is a South African one as well. There is a few there. What is the I can't think of the name of it. Something City of Blood, possibly a South African one. But yeah, there's a handful of them. But yeah, Peacock, interesting. If it's your sort of thing, check it out. Check out the trailer. Okay, next up we have one from Saturn's Core. I just got in the mail from the Vinegar Syndrome kind of monthly deal, and this is Age of Demons, and this is a 1992-1993 SOV. Super bizarre, super goofy, super cheap, super low budget, super zany, outdated kind of style humor. This is directed by somebody named, what is his name? Damon, I'm gonna make sure I get this right. Damon Foster. He also stars in the film. He also wrote the film. He also does martial arts in the film. It's kind of a one-man team here. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 people that worked and probably did entirely everything. So first and foremost, SOV is very cheap. It's very low budget. And this time frame, early 90s, you kind of get different kind of films. You get some transgressive ones that are pushing the boundaries and being very bizarre. You get some really just kind of ones that want to be straight generic slashers to make some money. And then you get some really weird ones that are just goofy, zany fun. And I would say Age of Demons fits in that kind of line here. At first, you see kind of like a woman being sacrificed by these villains, and they all have the acting ability, even worse, I would say, than some of the like later date Power Ranger episodes with them. Like villains are like, yes, we're gonna sacrifice. It's pretty piss poor acting. Not to be rude or but they're all kind of obviously having a good time or being goofy or silly. Being an SOV, it doesn't really help acting because the way it's edited and stuff, you really can't do sometimes you can't edit and cut over lines. Oh, everybody's awkward. It seems like that almost in every SOV, a lot of them. And this one is no different. In fact, it probably suffers a little bit more from that. So the acting is really rough, and purposely done goofy, I would say, on purpose. I'm not saying that they're trying to be Shakespeare here. They're obviously having some tongue-in-cheek and being silly, which is not my favorite style of acting or filmmaking in general. So essentially what we have here is a group of devil worshippers or demon worshippers that are trying to get to 100 sacrifices so that they can release a demon that goes around and kills a bunch of people and gets more sacrifices, and then I guess they're taking over the world somewhat. The demon is kind of a guy in a monkey suit with some alterations and horns. The main characters are some high schoolers that look about 35, 40. It's probably the oldest high schoolers I've ever seen in my entire life, one of which is the director, who's always making really derogatory and silly, outdated, gross out humor, on PC kind of style humor. It is the early 90s. It is what it is. So he's always saying ridiculous, raunchy ass shit, if you can hear it. At about 30 minutes, the subtitles become out of sync. They're not no longer in sync for like 20, 30 minutes, and it comes back, and eventually they're in sync. But there is a short period of 20, maybe 30 minutes where the subtitles are not in sync. They're there, but they're not synced up. So there's that issue as well. But as it goes on, it's just the main characters are really lame, and they're not very likable. And there's a lot of really just long, goofy takes. It seems very much improv. In a lot of ways, it does also feel like something like Miami Connection, or what was the crazy movie Mad Foxes, because it feels like they've incorporated some sort of actual martial arts group into the movie. Where it's like, hey, we know martial arts. We have all our buddies here in Taekwondo or whatever they do. We'll bring them in the film and incorporate them in the very end. And that's some of the, I guess, the most impressive stuff in the low budget. You see like some martial arts stuff with the main guy and some people doing kicks and shit. I was like, that's pretty impressive. And you've got to remember that the main guy in this movie is the guy in the monster suit. He's in all these different kinds of suits and shit, and the main guy, he's doing a lot of shit. All right, this is definitely a project of love, and it does show. So you got to give it some brownie points for that. But then again, at the same time, it is very low budget, very goofy, very reminiscent of even like the kind of Kamen Rider stuff, like the Japanese style, like flying kind of 60s, maybe 70s Godzilla movies, right, where they're like these flying guys and fighting people. It's very silly in that kind of goofy aspect as well. There is some nudity in the beginning, very gratuitous, obviously kind of added in. We're like, we need some nudity in here. And it is appreciated because it's one of the more iconic, like the cover art, the original cover art for this movie. I remember seeing that before, just hanging around. I don't know if I saw it at a video store. I doubt it strongly, but I remember seeing that cover art kind of float around, probably on the early days of the internet, wondering kind of what Age of Demons was. I think I mixed it up with the film Age of Insects, which is a different film, early 90s as well. Overall, Age of Demons is not necessarily my favorite film. I give it some appreciation because of who made it and how they made it and the love they had for the genre and everything like that. You can tell that they have a lot of love. There's a lot of goofy characters. There's a lot of punk rock aesthetic in here, or characters at the very least. A lot of, in the very beginning, they give you a warning. They are well aware that they're not out of their way trying to hurt anybody's feelings. It's just a goofy, silly comedy. It's not saying it's fact. So as far as the special features are concerned, we have audio commentary with director Damon Foster, moderated by film journalist William Conley. The Making of Age of Demons, new feature-length documentary. It's 109 minutes. It's pretty long. A lot of behind-the-scenes footage and just kind of direction and silliness. Behind-the-scenes footage and outtakes. Super 8 works. Over an hour of Damon Foster's early silent Super 8 shorts with director's commentary as well. Damon Foster's trailer vault, reversible sleeve, and English subtitles. So 77 minutes, region free. If it sounds like up your alley, Saturn's Core, Age of Demons. All right, we're going to hop into those 1981 movies.
Woe be unto him who opens one of the 7 gateways to hell, because through that gateway, evil will invade the world.
they say on a Valentine's Day is a curse that'll live on and on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. In this little town, when the 14th comes round, there's a silence and fear in the air. Remember the morn that the legend was born, all the shock and the horror was there. Oh, the legend, they say, on a Valentine's Day is a curse that'll live on, and no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. And no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago.
Okay, first up is a banger. This is also from the new Vinegar Syndrome release here. This is a VSU, and this is Walter Hill, Southern Comfort. Now, this is not necessarily a horror film. It's more of a thriller, of course, action film. Southern Comfort, I've watched a few times. In fact, it was a movie that I showed my dad. I figured back in the day, I was like, you never seen Southern Comfort? I think you'll dig this one, and we watched it, and I remember he liked it. Of course, it was the day before my double hernia surgery almost 10 years ago. So think of that, guys. I'm still kicking, had a double hernia surgery. So anyway, Southern Comfort, it's a Walter Hill film. Walter Hill obviously directed Hard Times, The Warriors, Last Man Standing, Extreme Prejudice, so many good films, The Driver. And Southern Comfort, I think, is one of his best. So what it does is it follows the kind of National Guard here in Louisiana. And they're just doing a military practice. They're going to go through the swamps of Louisiana and walk, 38 kilometers or something along those lines, 138 kilometers. I don't remember what it is. They all have blanks, and they're going to just kind of do this kind of basically protocol thing. Nothing, no big deal, no anything. So the group is made up of a bunch of famous actors, led by Peter Coyote. He's the leader of the group. Then we have, of course, Powers Booth and Keith Carradine. We have Fred Ward. We have Franklin Seals. We have Lewis Smith. We have T.K. Carter. Who else is in it? So we have such a good eclectic group of actors in here, and it predates Predator, but it does have those kind of vibes. I mean, Without Warning does too, but that's a little different. So essentially what happens is a couple of the asshole guys, they have to steal these canoes that they find, and then one of them fires blanks at the people that they stole the canoes from when they're in the river. And these guys are kind of Cajun backwoods, and they don't take kindly to that. And before long, they start to pick them off one by one. So it becomes a survival film. It's excellent, and as tensions start to push against each other, sometimes people are pulling in different directions. It has that Walter Hill slow motion, that he probably picked up a little bit from Sam Peckinpah, but he says, because he worked with him, but he also says Kurosawa. He also at one point kind of argued that his slow motion is to kind of show the violence in a more extreme way, while Peckinpah's was to kind of make it uglier. It's whatever. But regardless, the film is excellent. I love how it's edited. Ry Cooder does the score. He did the score for Long Riders, I believe, as well, which is another Walter Hill film. I think he did the score for The Border, if I'm not mistaken. Well, anyways, the score is excellent. The score is twangy. It fits. It's just very atmospheric, very ambient. Excellent fucking score. The score is the best part of the movie, and I love this movie. So the acting is tremendous. I mean, I'm a huge Powers Booth fan. I'm a huge Fred Ward fan. I'm a huge Keith Carradine fan. Like, watching stuff like this, he's really good. Lewis Smith is such a greasy fucker in this, man. He's such a hillbilly. But the ending, how it's done, is just excellent too. How they're in that small location, they're having that party, and they have the loud music playing. It reminds me a lot of The Wild Bunch. Just the Peck and Pal style loud music, the distractions, all these kind of things like that, right? And it's just so well done. The music, the score, the acting. I love Powers Booth. He's very funny in here, and the stuff he says remind me of the Louisiana versions of the same dumb rednecks I grew up with. Just stuff like that. But also I should mention that some of the Cajuns, of course, are Brian James doing a great Cajun accent. Powers Booth, we supposed to say thank you? You ain't supposed to say nothing, soldier boy. Soldier. I love Brian James in here. You also recognize Sonny Lanham in here. So it's just got a great cast. The 4K looks amazing. I was like, I can't believe this looks so good. This sounds so good. The picture quality is excellent because it's in the swamps. It's cold. It's got a certain quality about it, an atmosphere that's just top notch. Regardless, I would recommend picking up, regardless of what. But anyways, I would really recommend picking up Southern Comforts. The 4K looks fucking amazing. It's an excellent movie. There's new features on there as well. So what we have on here is an HDR, of course, and we have commentary track by Walter Cha, author of Walter Hill, Tragedy and Masculinity, and Films of Walter Hill. Also included on the Blu-ray disc is Battle of the Bayou, brand new interview with co-writer, director Walter Hill. Love what he has to say about the movie, of course. Very smart man. Behind Enemy Lines, brand new featurette feature with editor Freeman A. Davis and assistant editor Lisa Zeno Kurjan. And Freeman talks a lot about meeting Walter Hill and making this movie, and talking about being in a warm hotel room while he's watching these guys be in freezing cold Louisiana swamps. And they just talk about the editing and how they met Walter Hill and how many times they worked with him and how many films they enjoyed by him. Soldiers Not Mailmen, brand new interview with costume designer Dan Moore. Into the Unknown, brand new interview with film historian Wayne Burr on Southern Comfort and Legacy of Walter Hill. Archival featurette interviews with co-writer, director Walter Hill, co-producer David Geiler, along with actors Powers Booth, who's since Pat, Keith Darington, Peter Coyote, and Lewis Smith. All good stuff here. Peter Coyote is a very intelligent man, has a lot to say about it. Anyways, I keep saying regardless, it's very annoying. Anyways, the Southern Comfort Blu-ray disc and 4K is an excellent addition to any Walter Hill fanatic, and I would recommend picking this up. One of my favorite Walter Hill films, top 5, easy. We just got The Warriors on 4K. We just had Extreme Prejudice get a United States Blu-ray. We're getting there, guys. I think a lot of people would like to see a nice American release of The Driver. I know it was a Twilight time, but I think a lot of people would like to see that. I bet we'll get it soon. There's been a lot of deals with Studio Canal, so we'll probably see that. But anyways, Southern Comfort, excellent movie. Highly recommended on 4K. Okay, the next 1981 movie is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not going to open this bad boy up, and you're going to say, why, Dave? Because this thing weighs a ton. This is the sensual world of a black Emanuelle. And the movie I'm talking about is Divine Emanuelle from 81, aka Love Camp. Now, this is not an official canon Emanuelle film, but it's aka Divine Emanuelle, aka and Love Camp. And being in 1981, you see Love Camp, you're like, what is this kind of story? Emanuelle is a leader of a cult, which we're doing a cult film, right? We had Eaten Alive from 1980, we had the Jonestown, 78, so it's pretty close, right? The Jonestown Massacre and everything like that. So cults were big in the 80s films, and they were big in the 60s and 70s for real. So what we have here is essentially Emanuelle, or Laura Gemser, is leading this cult, and she's manipulating everyone. She has this like kind of big burly guy that does her bidding, and Gabrielle Tinty is there. Imagine a couple other familiar faces are there as well. But what happens is, so this senator's like daughter or something gets involved with the cult because she falls in love with this like fair-haired man that is in the cult, and it gets really complicated. The senator wants her out, all these kind of things like that. But at the same time, there's like a major donation going on, and there's people trying to leave the cult. It's a sex cult, so people are constantly having sex, constantly having orgies, constantly being used for sex. But there's people that want to leave the cult. When you find that out, they're done for, right, by this big hulking bodybuilder who has ridiculous dubbing on him. I guess the most famous thing about the movie is going to be the soundtrack, because there's a ridiculous song in there. This is the end. It gets stuck in your head. It turns into a weird, kind of strange musical. Very funny, very comical, very bizarre. Lots of sex and nudity, lots of weirdness, lots of goofiness, unintentional humor, but also just ballsy and fucking bonkers. Divine Emanuelle is definitely worth your time. There's 2 cuts of the film on there. The other was the original cut that the director intended that was never released. I didn't get a chance to watch that, but there's some deleted scenes as well. But Divine Emanuelle was interesting, to say the least. More of an exploitation film, but I could see the horror bends to it. I just think it's crazy that like right away when the Jonestown movie happened, classic exploitation move, right? They're like, well, got Eaten Alive, let's bring that out, and then we get in this one, Divine Emanuelle. So it's like, it's all these different movies. I know there's another one called like Ghana, Cult of the Damned, there's just Guana, and then Cult of the Damned. There's 2 different movies. Regardless, it's insane that we just like the reaction to cinema was, hey, we have this horrible tragedy, let's make a bunch of movies. We do it all the time, we're still doing it, except the movies back then just seemed a little, maybe we're so far removed from them, I just kind of enjoyed them more. I don't know. It is what it is. Divine Emanuelle from this box set that has 24 fucking movies in it. I'm glad I have this bad boy. Okay, next up is the Patreon pick, and this is a pure formality. I think that Derek B picked this. This is by the director of Cinema Paradiso. This is made in 1994, and it stars, of course, Gerard Depardieu and Roman Polanski. I also noticed Massimo Vanni in the credits, which is excellent. He's a very prevalent, or I guess infamous stuntman in Italy, or I guess you'd say, what's the word? A prolific, I would say, stuntman in Italy. He's done a lot of work. He pops up in Robo War by Bruno Mattei. But this one, a pure formality. I did not know much about it. But we open up in a really strange way. We see like rain pouring. Gerard Depardieu is running through the woods. It's stormy, and like a gun barrel's at him, and he's escaping. And all of a sudden, he gets arrested by these cops. They throw him down. They're brutalizing him. He bites somebody. He's aggressive. They take him to this kind of hole-in-the-wall, shitty, fucking leaky police station and start questioning him. And then, of course, the guy questioning him is Roman fucking Polanski, the director, of course, of Rosemary's Baby, Chinatown, and Tenet, a million fucking movies. Also the star of Tenet. So anyways, what happens is they start to question him, and before long we kind of realize there's been a murder, and we don't know who's been murdered. And they're like, what'd you do? He cannot remember every detail of his life. And you're like, his hands are bloody. You're like, what is going on? Did Gerard Depardieu commit these murders? Is Roman Polanski pushing him or pressing him for something he didn't do? Is Roman Polanski not who he says he is? But as the film progresses, we start to learn more, and more stuff is kind of revealed, and we start to point to a couple different things. And the line of pure formality is actually pretty interesting, I guess, because it comes to play in the end a little bit, I think. Or it's just a pure formality. And Gerard Depardieu is supposed to be an author, a famous author, and Roman Polanski's a big fan, and that complicates the issue. And we keep seeing these kind of lines from his book pop up and how they relate to the story. The ending is pretty interesting. It kind of makes everything a different style of film. Overall, I think this is really well done. It's a movie that is mostly just two people talking and some flashbacks, but as it progresses, you lean in more and more to figure out what happened. And it's literally on the shoulders of two actors, Gerard Depardieu, who's a classic actor, been in a million movies, and of course, Roman Polanski, who's not really an actor, but he does a good job here. He reminds me of like little Harvey Keitel, to be honest. Overall, I think that this is a really good film, really well made. The score is by Ennio Morricone. You can't go wrong. The director made Cinema Paradiso, which is an excellent film. I mean, a very well-respected film for good reason. It's a great one. But overall, pure formality, I really enjoyed it. I would really recommend it. I think I watched it streaming for free on Roku TV, where the subtitles were just slightly off. It was kind of annoying, but I got the gist of it. Good film. Good film, interesting film. I don't want to say too much without I'll spoil too much, but I would recommend a pure formality. Good stuff. All right, let's get into these questions, comments, concerns. Craig Wolf, James Earl Jones scared me most in this movie, more than Vader. Talk about Conan the Barbarian. Mr. Mansion, when I heard the Fulci music at the end of the video of In the Graveyard, it makes me really nostalgic. It makes me feel so old now since I've been following you since the beginning, and I've aged with you. It's so weird getting older. So happy you're still doing this and still love fucked up movies no matter your age. P.S. You are also an inspiration to help me get through my own stuff with the way you've gotten through your own stuff. Mrparka forever since my 20s, damn it. Thanks, I appreciate it. You know, I started this when I was early 20s, and I've gone through a lot of shit, you know. Since I've started reviewing YouTube, I don't want to get too crazy. Geez, what year was it? I've lost my last remaining grandparent. I lost both my parents. I've lost family pets. I've lost family members have lost their houses in fires, you know. I've had really traumatic relationship issues, lots of stuff, health issues. Like, we're all getting older. We all been through it, you know. It's rough. It sucks getting older, you know. And I guess these things that you do, these habits, or they keep you sane. They keep you focused. But, you know, there's been times where I almost was done. Lots of times when I was almost done. I'm just not the type to announce it, right? I know I'm leaving this, or I'm doing this, or I'm thinking of leaving this. It's either I'm done, and I'm done. I might come back. I might not. Nobody needs to know. No need to make it dramatic when it doesn't have to be. But I appreciate it. I appreciate you being there, you know. Getting old fucking sucks. But ABBA96, one of my favorite channels. Thank you. Dottie Semity. If you get the chance, please check out the movie My Animal from 2023. Would be very interested to know what you think of it. Love your channel. Watch it all the time. Thank you. Scott Sawyer. He says United Kingdom. I don't know what's going on here. Did I forget his comment? I'm sorry about that. Nick Mua from Belgium. Great news about Candyland hitting Blu-ray. I'll have to upgrade. Even if we only get a partial commentary track, it'll be informative. Listen, I wager. Also, I agree with you regarding Owen Campbell. He always delivers performance-wise. He's fantastic in Super Dark Times and X. I love him in X too, yeah. Questions. 1, have door-to-door religious people tried to save you? I seem to get them every now and then. It's been a long time. But I could tell you a funny story. I shouldn't even tell this story on here. I probably was like 15, 16 years old, 16 or something like this. I shouldn't even say this, but I was in the back, like my parents were gone, and I was jerking off. I was young, I was watching like a porn or something, and the doorbell rings, and I'm like, I shouldn't go out there, and these Jehovah Witnesses come, and I wash my hands as fast as I can. I ran to the door, and these Jehovah Witnesses are literally looking at me, and I just like was in the middle of jerking off, and they're like, do you know that you're going to and I'm like half confused, like, do you want to? I'm like talking to me about my salvation. I'm like, huh? And it was just so awkward and weird, and not good. Two, in the post-Baldwin Brandon Lee world, do you feel that TV movie sets need better safety regulations, or is it just a case of a few bad apples? I hope you're never got injured on a set. The movies I'm in are not even in the same league as that. I've gotten injured, yes. I mean, not seriously injured, thankfully, but I've had bumps and bruises and done my own stunts in these low-budget, no-budget movies, Some people are safer than others, and these movies cost nothing. Those movies are bigger, more expensive. I think, obviously, we need to have safety regulations, but I can't make comments on how safe they are on these big sets either. I imagine they're probably much more safe than what I've been on. But what film got broadcast on TV so much during your teens you came to love it? Nighthawks was the film for me alongside Predator 2. I hope you're still okay health-wise and that you'll be still making videos vid age 95. Till next time, sir. What movie was always on TV that I watched? Army of Darkness. I always saw that on television, and I always loved it since. So there's other ones I loved before. The Thing. I actually saw more on TV first, and then before I fell in love with it. Zombie Adams. Nighthawks is such an amazing film and criminally overlooked, in my opinion. Ken Coakley, I agree with you that Conan the Barbarian is much better than Conan the Destroyer. I read a few Robert E. Howard's Conan books. The only titles I remember are Conan the Swordsman and Conan the Usurper. I also read the Marvel comic as well as the Thor because both characters were celebrated in heavy metal culture. I remember when DreamWorks released a teaser trailer for Gladiator in which the theme from Conan the Barbarian. Which made Gladiator look badass. Some facts about the Conan films. At the time of Conan the Destroyer's release, Grace Jones was engaged to Dolph Lundgren. In Conan the Barbarian, Schwarzenegger's long hair was real. He wanted the method, so he grew his hair long. It seemed very real towards the end of the film. In an interview, Oliver Stone that said he was supposed to make the Conan films a 12-film cycle. Conan the Destroyer stopped that. Conan creator Robert E. Howard was mentally ill and revealed in the interview that a shadow figure shaped like Conan holding an axe told him to write another story he would strike Howard down with the axe. Robert E. Howard committed suicide after the death of his mother. Now regarding Nighthawks. I saw it at my local movie theater 3 times in 81. It was the first time I heard of Rutger Hauer. At first I thought he was Richard Harris. Tom Savini says that he met Stallone through Joe Spinell when they were filming Maniac and Spinell was filming Nighthawks. I love that. That's awesome. But yeah, let's get into the Patreon drawing, because I guess I covered that Indian film that I drew out there already, and I completely forgot because the name was so bizarre. But again, if you haven't been drawn out in a while, let me know. I'm going to draw 4 or 5 names. What do we got here? First, okay. So we got 3. I did 3. We got David Luton, Blow Up. Now that's Blow Up or Blowout we already did. Now we're doing Blow Up, which is the Antonioni movie, right? I think that's great. I'm interested in that for sure. Then we also have Art Figueredo, John Wilhelm. I thought that was it. Any VS release, Vinegar Syndrome release you haven't seen. Love seeing that. And then we have Jim Simon, 3 Women by Altman. Also great. I think that maybe that's the one that just got released. That's Little Darling. Sorry about that. Do I have Little Woman? I'll find it. I might have that. And then we got 2 more coming out here. We have Dan the Cameraman, final film from a great director. Man, I could have done Swiss Conspiracy for that, right? And then another one here. Last one. Dan the Cameraman, Vinegar Syndrome partner label I ain't seen. So there we go. That's 5 great ones. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. Let's get to that update. Alright, first up, it's just going to be the cover for Freeway, the hard box for Freeway 1 and 2. I had these already in 4K, so I picked up the box. Then we got Santet 1 and 2. I think these are Indonesian crazy horror films from Vinegar Syndrome. Put them out. I think they're late 80s, early 90s. Definitely into the Indonesian flicks, especially after watching a bunch for 81 and some other ones. But very cool to have 1 and 2 together. Then we got a cool 4K release here of The Horrible Dr. Hichcock. I was hoping this would be a good stateside release. I know Olive put it out, but there's been so many different versions of this movie, and I guess it's not been correct and all that. But so yeah, we got commentaries by all sorts of great people on here, so really looking forward to watching this one finally. Riccardo Freda, classic horror film that I've never seen, classic Italian horror film. So yeah, nice hard box there. Definitely a gem early in the year. Then we have the Forgotten Gialli Volume 5 box set from Vinegar Syndrome. Volume 6? What's going on here? I'm getting old. I don't even remember what the hell's in the boxes. What do I got in this one? We got 3 titles here. Death Carries a Cane. Very cool. Naked You Die. Antonio Margheriti. Seen that one years ago. Good film. The Bloodstained Shadow, which was a movie that had a DVD stateside and a Blu-ray overseas, but now we finally got it ourselves. Very cool. What else do we have? Keep trucking here. We got a VHS-A, Black Cat 1 and 2. I've seen Black Cat 1. Pretty good Hong Kong flick. Never seen part 2. Looking forward to checking these out. Good stuff, of course. Nice booklet here. Oh, it's a side book. Very cool. The Black Cat movie is pretty solid. Good stuff. Fun stuff. I think most people will enjoy that kind of thing, honestly. If you like Hong Kong action films, if that is, and who doesn't? If you don't, leave. I'm just kidding. But then we have VHSP. There's so many sub-labels I'm losing track now. And this is what? I can't even read. Divinity, I think. I couldn't read exactly what it's supposed to be. This looks super bizarre film here. Looks trippy. So interesting for sure. Then, of course, we have one of their new sub-labels here. And I don't remember what it's called. Their sub-label, Cinematography. Or this is Little Darlings. Man, these are fucking deluxe. These are heavy, too. These are like Criterion on crack. So, Little Darlings. And, of course, we have Red Rock West, with, of course, John Dahl directed. And we have Nicolas Cage and Dennis Hopper. Very good stuff here. And then we have some sub-label stuff. We have from EGFA, we have Blonde Death. This looks bonkers and weird, as it should, right? EGFA is always bonkers and weird. And then we have The Strangler from 1970, which I covered for 1970, and this is a really interesting, really good film. Super happy that Altered Innocence put this out. I would recommend people checking this one out if you've not seen it. It's very crazy, just kind of depressing, and just says a lot about death and wanting to die and suicide, and it's just a good film. I would really recommend it. Interesting for sure. Then, of course, what else do we have here? Sexmission. Did I already talk about Sexmission? I don't think I did. Sorry, this is a VSL. Sexmission. Looks super bizarre. Man, that's a pattern today. This looks super weird. This looks super bizarre. I think I've just like went off the hinges and I'm just buying the craziest movies I can. And last, as far as the films are concerned, After Blue, Dirty Paradise. This looked really interesting. Is it Paradise? It's hard to read that font. But yeah. I don't remember who directed this, but I just thought visually it looked gorgeous. This is another Altered Innocence one. And I got my little slipcover for Punk Vacation. So, yeah, very cool. Anyways, I guess we're out of here. Thank you guys very much for watching. And as always, have a good one. Meh.